And now we're finally ready to talk about the 12 signs. I saved this part for last, probably surprisingly, but I did that for a reason because believe it or not, this is the least critical component of a chart. So when it comes to being able to interpret a chart, this has the least sway in terms of what is actually happening in the chart. And you can think of it almost like a coloring book. So when you know where your planets are located, in which areas of the chart, and how they relate to one another through the different aspects, that is the image of your chart. And that image will not change regardless of where the signs are located. And in a coloring book, you can change the tone of the image by selecting different colors, but you can't change the image itself. And it works the same way with the chart. So the planets being located in different signs will have a modifying effect on how the behavior is expressed, but each planet will always represent the same thing. Mars, for example, will always represent self assertion and your objectives and how you go about achieving goals. It doesn't matter what sign it's in, it always represents those same things. But let's talk about the signs because it is important to understand. So we'll start with the first sign, Aries, here. And as we move around the wheel clockwise, we have two qualities of each sign that alternate. The first is the modality, the mode of the sign, and that can be cardinal, fixed, or mutable. And then we repeat again, starting with the fourth sign at cardinal, and then fixed and mutable, and so forth. The cardinal signs are the initiators of the zodiac. They like to begin new things. The fixed signs would prefer to maintain the status quo, so they are very resistant to change. And then the mutable signs are highly adaptable and changeable, and they are able to see both sides. And we also have the elements which alternate in the order fire, earth, air, and water that you can see. And let's talk about the basic themes of each sign so you guys have an overall idea, and then a couple of positive traits as well as a couple of negative traits. So, starting with the first sign, Aries, some of the key themes for this sign are the self, identity, and being first. And a couple of positive traits associated with the sign are directness and assertiveness. But on the negative side, Aries can be overly aggressive or confrontational. And Aries is a cardinal sign, which I mentioned as the first sign of the zodiac. It is cardinal and it is a fire sign. Taurus, the second sign, is a fixed earth sign. And key themes associated with Taurus are the physical world, material resources, and groundedness. Taurus as a sign is calm and practical, but can also be slow to act or stubborn to change. And then we have the third sign, Gemini, which is a mutable air sign. Gemini is associated with things like communication, speech, and writing. It's a sign which is intelligent and open-minded. But on the negative side, it can also be inconsistent and at times erratic. Then we have the fourth sign, Cancer, and we are beginning again with the cardinal signs. So Cancer is a cardinal water sign. Cancer has key themes related to intuition, mood, and family. And it's a sign that is known for being very caring and kind, but it can also be seen as being moody or sensitive. The fifth sign, Leo, is a fixed fire sign, and Leo is associated with leadership, loyalty, and creativity. And here there is an innate ability to lead, and there's also great honesty. But Leo at times can be vain and tyrannical. Those would be the negative traits. The next sign, Virgo, is a mutable earth sign, and it relates to health, service, and work. Virgo is extremely conscientious and detail-oriented, but it's a sign that can be overly critical and at times obsessive. Libra begins again with the third cardinal sign. Libra is a cardinal air sign, and it relates to relationships, balance, and beauty. Libra is very discerning and also mindful of others. But with Libra, there can be an inability to make decisions at times, and there can also be a dependency on others. Scorpio is a fixed water sign, and it rules themes like psychology, transformation, and reproduction. Scorpio has the ability to see through falsehoods and is extremely skilled in psychology. But on the negative, it can be unnecessarily dark and intimidating to others. Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign, and it's associated with higher knowledge, positivity, and abundance. And I know those seem like great things, and Sagittarius is considered to be an extremely fortunate sign. So on the plus side, there is an extremely positive outlook with this sign, and it seeks freedom in all regards. But on the negative, it can be slightly naive or perceived as being non-committal. The next sign, Capricorn, is the final cardinal sign. It's a cardinal earth sign, and it's associated with social status, achievement, and working towards long-term goals. On the plus side, Capricorn is hardworking and dependable, but Capricorn is also sometimes viewed as being too serious or having a lack of emotional expression. Aquarius relates to social awareness, acceptance, and unconventionality, and it's a fixed air sign. Aquarius is associated with positive traits like advancement, especially through technology, and uniqueness on a personal level. The thing with Aquarius is that there can be rebelliousness to an extreme, and there can also be unexpected changeability. And then we have the final sign, Pisces, which is a mutable water sign. And Pisces is connected to the unconscious, empathy, and surrendering. And Pisces has positive traits like being compassionate and having strong endurance. But it can also live a little too much in its own world, and there can be a lack of boundaries present. So those are some of the key themes that I want you guys to be aware of, as well as some positive and negative traits associated with each sign. And that's really all that you need to get you started as far as what the different signs relate to. But there is a bigger pattern here that I would also like to point out with the chart. And that is that the first four signs relate to the individual. And those first four signs again are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. So those signs relate to the individual. The next four signs relate to others: Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. And then the final four signs relate to the collective, those being Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And a good way to understand this is by thinking of it this way. With Aries, the focus is on how to discover your individual identity. That is why it is related to the individual. With Taurus, there is a focus on obtaining resources for your individual survival. This sign is associated with resources for the self. Gemini is concerned with learning to communicate your individual thoughts. So what are you specifically thinking as an individual, and how can you convey that through writing or speech? Cancer is concerned with understanding your individual emotions, how you are feeling, and why you are feeling that way. And then when we move on to the next group of signs, we are shifting from the individual to others. With Leo, there is a focus on discovering where you can shine and lead others. With Virgo, there is a focus on providing service to others. With Libra, the focus shifts to developing one-on-one relationships with others. And then with Scorpio, the focus is on understanding the psychology of others through those relationships which have been established. So again, we shifted in the first third of the zodiac wheel, we were concerned with the individual. And then the second third, we were concerned with others. And now for the final 4 signs, we're shifting to the collective. And here with Sagittarius, the aim is to obtain the highest knowledge possible based on the collective experience of man. That is the concern of Sagittarius, and it is a collective idea. Then moving on to Capricorn, the concern becomes achieving a social status in order to influence the collective experience of man. With Aquarius, next, we're concerned with establishing a large-scale communication to deliver messages that impact the collective experience of man. And that is why Aquarius rules computers, because the internet is a great way for everyone to be interconnected on a much larger scale. And then with the final sign, Pisces, the concern is understanding the collective unconscious, which drives the collective experience of man. So that is an important pattern to understand, and I hope that makes sense to you guys. That is pretty much it for the signs. That's what we want to know at this point, and I will be doing one more video for this series where we put together everything that we've learned and do an overall interpretation of the chart. So I hope you guys join me for that. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.